The conflict The conflict between Israel and Iran has reached new and dangerous heights. After years of tension and proxy warfare, Israel launched a direct strike on Iran in June 2025, hitting military targets and facilities connected to Iran's nuclear program. At this point, it looks as if the Islamic Republic of Iran is in a situation it has never faced before. For the first time ever, we can begin to speculate what might happen if the current regime in Iran were to fall, and how we should view the situation in Iran from a Kurdish perspective. The relationship between Kurds and Iranians is long and complicated. During the era of the Shah of Iran, Kurdish identity was heavily suppressed. The Kurdish Republic of Kurdistan, declared in 1946 in Iranian-occupied Kurdistan, was quickly crushed by the Shah's military, and its legendary leader Qazi Muhammad and his close associates were executed on the Shah's orders. At the same time, thousands of Kurds were imprisoned or forced into exile. Besides this, thousands of Kurds faced brutality and persecution under the Shah in Rojhelat. In fact, these atrocities have been overshadowed by the regime that followed in 1979. When the Islamic Republic came to power in 1979, many Kurds hoped for change. In the early days of the new regime, Kurdish leaders tried to find a path forward with Iran. Suggestions of self-rule under Iran, similar to what the Kurds have today in Bashur and Rojava, were put forward, but all such proposals were immediately shut down by the Islamic regime. Soon, the new regime declared war on the Kurds. Villages were bombed, Kurdish activists and leaders were executed, and even today, Rojhelat remains under severe military and ideological control. For example, Kurdish language education is completely forbidden, while civilians occasionally disappear, are arrested, or are killed, accused of waging war against God or espionage. Every year, between 600 and 1,000 people are executed in Iran by hanging. More than half of them are Kurds, despite Kurds making up only around 10% of the Iranian population. In 2022, Kurdish woman Gina Amini was killed in Tehran, sparking major protests in Kurdish areas that later spread across Iran under the slogan Jin Jiyan Azadi. Around 500 protesters were killed, thousands were injured, and even more were arrested. So where do Kurds stand in this conflict between Iran and Israel? Well, the answer is not simple. There are at least two major dimensions to consider. The first is the humanitarian perspective. This point of view highly values the interconnection between Kurdish suffering and other conflicts, especially the Palestinian one. Israel is accused of war crimes and genocide by major human rights organizations, and many see the Israeli attack on Iran as an escalation, not self-defense. From this view, some Kurds do not side with Israel because it feels morally wrong, even if Iran is also an oppressive regime. There is no unified Kurdish opinion because both Iran and Israel have blood on their hands. The second dimension is the Kurdish nationalist and geopolitical perspective. From this angle, Israel is seen as a potential ally. Why? Because Israel has historically supported Kurdish autonomy movements, especially in Bashur, Iraqi-occupied Kurdistan. And then there's the undeniable fact: Iran continues to oppress its own people, including Kurds, Balochs, and women's rights activists. It imprisons, tortures, and executes political dissidents. The regime's hands are far from clean. This is a question that undoubtedly divides the Kurdish people into two opinions. To explore this, we asked our followers on Instagram for their views. Here are some comments from both sides. Whatever Israel does, they'll never be our friend. This reflects a deep distrust of Israeli intentions. Just because they support Kurdish independence doesn't mean they're genuine allies. Some Kurds believe Israel only uses Kurdish causes when it serves their own interests. I support Israel in this war because I want a free Kurdistan. Rojhelati Kurds have suffered a lot. Freedom is coming. This person sees the war as an opportunity, believing that a weakened Iran could pave the way for Kurdish freedom, especially in eastern Kurdistan. I believe that we, as Kurds, should not take sides in this conflict. Both countries are militarily hundreds of times stronger than us. They may be enemies today, but in politics nothing is guaranteed. They could become allies tomorrow. We should focus on protecting our lands and striving for our rights without getting involved in battles that are not ours. This quote captures a pragmatic and cautious approach, one that many Kurds share. Neutrality, focus on internal struggle, and avoiding entanglements in superpower games. Here's what the broader statistic shows. When asking my followers who they support, out of 1340 votes, 14% chose Iran, 24% chose Israel, and 62% chose none. When asking my followers whether they think it is over for the regime or not, out of 961 votes, 60% voted yes, 8% voted no, and 31% voted that they think the regime will be weakened but not removed from power. Apart from this, after taking in almost all comments, voted no, and 31% voted that they think the regime will be weakened but not removed from power. Apart from this, after taking in almost all comments from the different posts and the different messages I got privately and placing them in ChatGPT, 61 were Israel friendly, 11 were Iran friendly, and 46 were neutral. Another 12 mentioned Palestine, and another 18 criticized both Israel and Iran and urged us to think about the Kurdish cause only. Let's talk about the two most likely outcomes of this conflict. There is mainly two scenarios possible. The first one is that Iran gives up and accepts humiliating negotiations with Israel and the US. This would preserve the regime but strip it of power and influence. For the Islamic Republic, this is not just political defeat, it's an existential threat. The leadership would only consider this route if their survival was on the line. The second outcome is that the regime of Iran refuses to back down, loses the war, and the regime collapses. This scenario is far more transformative and far more unpredictable. If the regime falls, what comes next? There are two major possibilities being discussed today. Return of the Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi. He presents himself as a secular alternative, but many Kurds remember the monarchy as oppressive. Under the Shah, Kurdish language, culture, and political activism were all criminalized. Prominent Kurdish leaders were executed. Going back to the monarchy is not the answer for many. A democratic Iran. This is the hope of many young Iranians and ethnic minorities. A new constitution, a secular system, and equality for all. But that dream will require unity and trust among groups that have been historically divided. So what about the Kurds? Can Rojhelat's Kurds organize a path toward autonomy, similar to how Kurds did in Bashur and Rojava? That is the question many are asking. It won't be easy. The road is long and filled with risks, but the desire for freedom is stronger than ever. The Kurdish perspective on the Israel-Iran conflict is not black and white. It is shaped by history, trauma, hope, and strategic vision. Some see allies in unexpected places, others choose neutrality or focus on human rights. But what unites all Kurds is this: the fight for dignity, freedom, and the right to decide their own future, regardless of the games played by greater powers. Thank you for watching.